Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and as much of a disaster as the general election was for Labour, the scale of the defeat is actually much greater, and it's actually Nigel Farage and his Brexit Party that are helping cover some of Labour's blushes. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. But first, if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I'd been saying for some time that the Brexit Party might be the Remainers' secret weapon. If the Brexit Party had stood in 600 odd seats, as Nigel Farage was threatening to, then the general election would have turned out very differently. It would have turned out very differently indeed. The Brexit Party were taking votes away from both Labour and the Conservatives, but much more predominantly the Conservatives, of course, given that Brexit is a Conservative idea. There are some in the working classes that would normally support Labour who also seem to think that it would be good for them, but far fewer of them. In fact, generally speaking, when we've looked at actual election results from earlier in the year and polls, it would seem that the Brexit Party are generally taking, for every 4 votes they win, they're taking 3 from the Conservatives and 1 from Labour. There are some polls more recently might suggest that for every 3, 1 from Labour and 2 from the Conservatives. As Boris Johnson moved the Conservatives much further to the right, a little bit of support from the Brexit Party came back to the Conservatives. So what we would say is, in this election, as far as can be told from the data we have at the moment, that the Brexit Party got 2/3 of its votes from the Conservatives and 1/3 from Labour. So that meant, although where the Brexit Party are active, Labour are losing votes, the Conservatives were losing more. And at the end of the day, for Labour to win a seat, it needed to beat the Conservatives. The Brexit Party won no seats. They weren't likely to win more than 1 or 2. In the end, weren't predicted to win any, and indeed didn't win any. Now, where the Brexit Party were reportedly more successful was in the north, which is supposed to be Labour's heartland. So I was crunching through some data. Now, I haven't gone through every single Labour win because there's just over 200 of them. And at the moment, I can't find the election results in a nice, easy format. It's taken me some time just to do what I wanted to do. I've specifically looked in the north of England. What have Labour, the seats that Labour won in the north of England, can I look at those results and say that if the Brexit Party had withdrawn from all seats, which is what Boris Johnson wanted them to do, would Labour have lost even more seats? And the answer is yes. And this is no longer just speculative. So we're just going to have a look at a little bit of data. Now, I did one set of data and then I tweaked it a little bit. Now, so as I say, I was just looking at seats in the north. These are all the seats that Labour won in the north, but could have lost if the Brexit Party were not active. Now, just to be clear on this, what I've done with this table is gone through the constituencies in the north, put down how many votes the Labour candidate won, which was enough in the end, how many the Conservative candidate won, how many the Brexit Party candidate won, and then the margin there is basically what I've done is I've said, right, Conservative plus Brexit Party vote, take away the Labour vote. So all of these are positive. Now, at the top of it, Barnsley East, there's massive margin there. You can say, yeah, if the Brexit Party weren't active there, the Conservative Party would have actually won that seat. Barnsley East would have been Tory now. But as you go down, that margin gets small, and right at the bottom, Worsley and Eccles South just 5. So I know what you're thinking. You're going, come on, Phil, not every vote that went to the Brexit Party would have gone to the Conservatives if the Brexit Party weren't active. No, of course not, no. So what I did was another version where I just said, well, let's say that 2/3 of those Brexit Party votes would have gone to the Conservative candidate. And the split, that's what I've called split, sort of looks like this. So you can see quite a few at the bottom are into the negative, which basically means I'm looking at that and thinking, well, if that were true in each of these constituencies, there's a certain amount of speculation here, then the Brexit Party, if they weren't active, Labour still would have won the seat for those negative ones. So that reduces it from, on the old one, that would have been 29 seats lost to Labour and would have gone to the Conservatives. So that would have put Labour on 174 seats, and the Conservatives would have been on 384. You know, huge majority. Now, the more realistic figures of Labour losing 20 seats would have put them on 183 and the Conservatives on 385. But in either case, you're still looking at the Conservatives. They've already got a massive margin. They would have had a margin of 100 or more. Now, again, even then, you'll still say, Phil, hang on a minute, let's just... Shouldn't you be adding, if you're adding 2/3 of the Brexit Party votes to the Conservatives, shouldn't you be adding 1/3 of them to Labour? Possibly. So what I will say on this one is, you can see the ones at the top where even that margin is still thousands. They definitely would have gone to the Conservatives. It's possible that some of the ones where the split is down to a few hundred, like Warrington North, I'm saying, the Conservatives would have won by a majority of 242. Maybe not. Maybe some of those Brexit Party candidates, because this is the North. Remember, this is working class. These are places where there will be some people who would vote Brexit Party because the Brexit Party convinced them, even though they are more right wing than the Conservatives, even under Johnson. And that, you can see that their candidates are extremely right wing people, and yet they've somehow convinced the working classes that they're actually not. They're a working class party. It's genius, really. Nigel Farage is quite brilliant at what he does. You have to say that. But yeah, so would they have necessarily voted Labour? Now, I'm going to say that an awful lot of them, although they will have come from in the past voting Labour, most of them, I don't know how many, wouldn't have voted Labour if the Brexit Party weren't active, because they would either have not voted at all, or some of them would have voted for that. But remember, the number one reason for people not voting Labour, including in the North, was Jeremy Corbyn. So you can certainly see that there's a lot of seats that would have been lost to Labour and gained by the Conservatives. There is a little bit of uncertainty around the middling bit where I've got a split of just over a few hundred. But the Brexit Party have definitely helped Labour win some seats they otherwise wouldn't have done. And I will just point out, right at the top there, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, depends how big you've got it, Normanton, Pontefract and Castleford. That's right at the top. That is definitely Conservative if the Brexit Party weren't active. That is the seat of Yvette Cooper, who is going to be one of the leadership candidates for Labour. If she wins, she will definitely do a much better job. Labour will get a very big bounce from that. I'm not saying it will give me massive hope. I'm not saying she's quite brilliant and she's going to be a perfect leader, but she will be the safest pair of hands, I think, for leading Labour's recovery, shall we say. She's an MP. If the Brexit Party weren't active, I am convinced that she would not be. There are also some other very good Labour MPs who would have lost their seats in this list, would have lost their seats, and haven't, just because the Brexit Party were there. And this is why it's also really important that Labour do get a good leader, because going into the next election, there's not going to be a Brexit Party. Nigel Farage is supposed to be starting his own party, the Reform Party. I don't know how serious that is, because what we know Nigel Farage is about to do is to disappear over to America and get paid a crap load of money for doing the speech circuit. And he's also going to be going around doing speeches for Donald Trump into the presidential election campaign. So he's going to be busy over there. So this Reform Party, whenever it emerges, if it emerges, is going to have to happen later. And it will only happen, remember, he can't fund it, he can't start it. He needs backers. Those backers were backing him for the Brexit Party because they wanted Brexit to happen. And that's why he had to pull out of those 317 seats. Because that's the thing. If the Brexit Party had been active in those 317 formerly Tory seats, I'm going to say Boris Johnson would not have got that majority. He wouldn't have got that majority. That would have split the vote quite significantly. But, of course, the reason Farage had to back out of those is because his financial backers had told him to. They genuinely want Brexit. So I don't see what advantage they're going to see in his Reform Party. Because although it's done a good job in convincing working class people to vote for them, believing that they're not extremely right-wing, at the same time, voting for them doesn't help the Conservatives when the Conservatives are targeting that seat as well. So that's my little look at the Brexit Party's shenanigans and how, in actual fact, although it's been a complete disaster for Labour, it could have been much, much worse. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, then also please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.